Appreciate the input from each of you here this morning. Good information and lots to talk about. We did have a good number of members that were here, and of course my hope was that they were all captivated about these natural disasters that our states face. But it's clear that Alaska, Washington State, probably the Pacific Northwest are perhaps a little more vulnerable. So don't take it as a lack of interest from the others. Some years ago, when I had just introduced the volcano monitoring system, Alaska was experiencing a string of eruptions, some that had shut down air traffic over Anchorage International Airport, really locked the state down. Most of us can remember days off work because you weren't clear to use your computers because the air filtration system was going to gum everything up, and it was a real mess. I was actually mocked for introducing that legislation. I was ridiculed that who needs to watch a volcano? Who needs to monitor a volcano? This was a big, fat Alaskan earmark, they said. And then the eruption in Iceland that shut down all of the European air traffic. And all of a sudden everyone's like, wow, how do we keep on top of all this? How about that cool volcano monitoring system? So I look back on that and think that we've come a long ways when it comes to how we are monitoring for these natural hazards, whether they be volcanoes or earthquakes and early warning. The issue of landslides, which is more and more troubling, certainly tsunamis. So we've come a long way, but I agree there is so much more that we need to do. And Dr. West, you speak to the issue of collaboration here, because we have a host of different agencies that are involved. We see that just represented here on the panel, from USGS to Forest Service, to our states, to our universities, to our local communities. So making sure that we're doing right by all of this is so important. Let me start with you, Dr. Applegate, and this relates to the seismic monitors. I was pleased when I first learned the effort that the National Science Foundation had made in placing these in Alaska, and then I was deeply troubled when I learned that they were going to pull them all out at considerable expense to NSF. So you go to the effort, the financial effort to install them, to gain all this important data, and then we're just going to pick up and leave. And Dr. West, you have mentioned this as well. Now, you have indicated that there is a strategy for retention of these stations. I've been pushing on this now for a couple years, but can you give me that assurance that these monitors are not going to have to be removed at the end of the year, that the negotiations or the discussions with USGS and NSF and NOAA for the adoption of these, that we're in a good place now?
Chairman, this is a good government opportunity, as you point out. This is a significant investment that's been made. We appreciate the opportunity to have worked with the state, worked with private sector and others to look at this opportunity, understand it, prioritize it. So I'll say we've got discussions are underway with NSF. The report that will be arriving has this prioritization. We will, I would say we're making a good faith effort to try to be able to capture as many of these as we can. And
is that when you say capture as many as we can, is that going to be determined by budget, or
Right. So,
What
so
exactly do you
obviously
mean
a
by
key
that?
key determinant of it is funding sources. As you indicated, it's not just about the USGS; it's about other agencies as well. But you know, I think we've laid the groundwork to know which are the ones that, as we do have resources available through whatever means, that we are capturing the ones that are most important for our earthquake monitoring, for tsunami monitoring, for volcano monitoring. You know, for the state.
Dr. West, what happens if we don't preserve these monitoring stations that we have? What happens to us as a state? You know, we're 1/5 the size of the country. We've got a lot of area to cover, and we know that we are in one of the most seismically active areas in the country. What happens if we don't make the smart funding decision here and aren't not able to protect what we've put in place with this monitoring infrastructure?
Well, we revert to where we were prior to this once-in-a-lifetime sort of opportunity, which is more than half the state doesn't really have modern seismic instrumentation of any sort. We have, I mentioned in my testimony, consistently fallen short of basic performance standards that we try to achieve nationally. Alaska has areas where that is simply never been achieved. So we go back to there.
And when you go back to there, you put people's lives at risk.
Well, that's right. I remain optimistic, though. I actually think we are moving in a good direction. I'm pleased with the diligence that the USGS has brought to the federal earthquake piece of this effort. I've seen tremendous enthusiasm from NOAA for the tsunami and the meteorological components of this. The state of Alaska, frankly, has struggled to be as strong a partner in this as it could be because of its fiscal situation. But that said, I firmly believe the state wants and needs to be engaged in this. We've had some troubles, some challenges in finding a really strong collaborative model for legitimate reasons, actually, but rules about, you know, Fed-only discussions and sensitivities and whatnot have made it difficult for everyone to sit in one room and kind of hash this out. I think we still have work to do to bring NOAA into the fold and make sure their needs are fully addressed. And again, the state, I think, has potential that we've not yet achieved. But I do think there's a path here.
Let me ask, and I guess this is back to you again, Dr. Applegate, and this relates to our volcano monitors. They're currently operating on an analog system, and in 2020, the National Telecommunications and Information Administration will eliminate the frequency that is used to transmit that data. So what progress are we making with regards to conversion of those to digital monitors? Can you give me a progress report here on how many more monitors need to be converted?
Absolutely. About 117 stations remain to be transferred from the older analog technology to the digital technology. And I'll say that there is advantage here, not only the issue of the spectrum availability and that driver for this, but this is also an upgrade in capability that will allow us to bring in additional data streams. So this is, I think, part of that sort of long-term National Volcano Early Warning System goal, is to have this modernization.
Are you satisfied with the progress then, or are we going to make that 2020 date?
The progress at this point, we've been able to accelerate with the additional support. We've been able to go from opportunistically maybe 6 to 7 a year up to on the order of 12 to 15.
That's
but
not
there
going
is
to get
still,
you there.
Yeah, it's not going to get us there. So we certainly are looking at the waiver issue in terms of that deadline. But yeah, the progress is there, but it's not certainly not going to get us to the deadline.
I'd like to have further conversation with you insofar as what you anticipate it would take from a budget perspective to accelerate this conversion.
Yes, we can
We'll
provide
talk
that.
further on that. Senator Cantwell.